Now we're going to go ahead and set up a text editor to actually write out our code and to show you one of the other benefits of using virtual environments. So the text editor I'm going to use is Visual Studio Code, or VS Code for short. This is free, open source, and it's created by Microsoft. It's one of the best, if not the best, code editors out there in the world right now. Now, of course, there are other ones that will come out and maybe improve upon what VS Code has done, because that's what they did. They took stuff like Sublime Text, which I definitely used a ton of and I love. I think it's a great software program. It's just VS Code is better because it took a lot of the things that Sublime Text was doing well and just improved upon it. There's something called PyCharm, which is an IDE. It's a little bit more of a robust development environment than stuff that's open source like VS Code. But honestly, I think VS Code is better, and it's free. PyCharm is not free. It's a couple $100. Another one I used in the past was Komodo Edit, and yeah, you could try this one out as well. But same thing, I think the Komodo Edit still might be free, but I haven't used this in a really long time, so I'm not actually positive. The point of me talking about all four of these is to tell you that there's a lot of different ways on how you can write your code. VS Studio or VS Code actually makes it so much easier to write code in a way that's almost cheating for beginners. Like it's like too good. It remembers things really well and it really helps us develop, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. Overall, I'm going to say that it's a good thing because it's going to be what you might end up using if you take this on as a job, or if you're wanting to get just better at programming. It will help you get better, I promise you. Now, that doesn't mean the other ones won't. That just means that I prefer Visual Studio Code, and I didn't prefer it for a very long time. You can ask a lot of my longtime watchers that I have not. So let's go ahead and download that. Just download it, install it, do all the things you need to do. I already have it opened up, and what you won't see on yours is probably a few of these items here. Don't worry, we'll get to that. I'm going to make a new file window, and I already created a Django project, so I'm going to go ahead and add the folder here. So I'll go to File, and we're going to add folder to Workspace. I'm going to navigate to my Django project, which is inside of Dev, and it's CFE Home or CFE Proj, depending on what you ended up doing. In my case, it was CFE Home. I'm going to go ahead and add that, and then I'm going to go ahead and save this workspace as, and I'm going to save it in the root of that project, which is where manage.py is, and it's just that home folder that we have. I'm going to go ahead and save that there. Okay, so now I've got my Django project here. There's something else that I want to actually install, and that is by clicking on this. There's these extensions, or this extension marketplace. I want to install the Python extension. This one is really, really good and will help you with your various environments. And so what I mean by that is if I'm in my project here and I open up, let's say urls.py, it gives me some things that without that extension, I wouldn't be able to do. One of those things is if we hit control tilde, not command tilde, it actually opens up my virtual environment for me, right? So what that means is, in my case, I've got this Z shell warning, so it's not actually doing it very well because it gives me that warning, and it's causing this to be an issue for me. But for you, you won't see that. It will actually activate that virtual environment as if you typed out pip env shell on your own, right? It'll look exactly like this. So that means that your project will be ready to run, and you can have multiple terminal windows in here. And if you didn't have this Z shell warning, then you would absolutely be ready to work on your project right off the bat. Now, in my case, I just have to type pip env shell and then it activates it. So it's not that big of a deal overall. But that is something that's really, really nice about VS Code is I don't actually have to leave the text editor ever to still work on this project. In other words, I can write python manage.py run server right here, and it will actually create that run server development server for me, and I would be able to access it. Now, of course, it's saying that port's already in use, and that's because I have it running on this terminal window, so I could change whatever port number I want to change it to, and it will run server on that port as well. So that's another thing that's pretty cool about Django in general. But VS Code or any sort of text editor, code editor here will make your life a lot easier when it comes to writing out your code. And part of the things that it does is actually color code how your software actually works, right? So like this is a proper import statement. If I do import admin from django.contrib, that is not a valid Python import statement. That looks a lot more like a JavaScript or React.js import statement or JSX import statement. So that's something else that VS Code does by default when you install that Python extension. There's a few other extensions that you might check out, such as Docker. That's one of them. Another thing that does build into this is a version control manager called Git. So you can actually track all of the changes right inside of VS Code. So for a beginner, it makes Git, or that version control system called Git, that's Git, it makes that unbelievably easier too. Now, I don't want to go too much into what VS Code can do because I think a lot of those features you'll start to uncover as you program a lot more. And also, we could probably spend an entire course just talking about the various cool things about VS Code, so I'm not going to spend any more time there. But now we have our Django project working inside of a text editor instead of just working off of the terminal itself. And that's the key thing here is we don't want to just work off of terminal. We want to be able to use a text editor so I can move a lot faster when it comes to creating things. Now, in my experience, I was using a text editor a lot in conjunction with the terminal window, and that is totally fine. You're just going to have to find a rhythm that you can get used to and something that you enjoy. Now, for me, going forward in all of my videos in the future, I'm going to be using VS Code until I change it, I guess. But I'm going to be using VS Code because I can have that terminal right on the window, so it's not hopefully too confusing for you watching it. So thanks for this one. If you have questions on VS Code or have some recommendations on extensions and all that, please let us know in the comments below.